So, one thing I wanted to show you before we dive into today's topic. I love this stuff. I could just listen to it all day, basically. I want to just give you another little taste of what we were talking about the other day. I didn't get to this. So, I mentioned that all intervals, all the different kinds of intervals, octave, fifth, third, second, they're all derived from different primes, which means they don't fit with each other. And when I say this, this is usually like abstract. You're like, okay, well, they don't fit. What does that mean? So I'll show you. So if we have middle C, which I forget, that's 261.62 hertz, approximately, with a lot of numbers after. So if we want to go up to the octave, divide the octave into equal parts, what are some different ways I can do this? Divide the octave into equal intervals. Half steps, yep. So that's 12 chromatic half steps. What else?
Whole steps.
Whole steps, yep, exactly. What other intervals?
So this comes like perfect 5 and 6, 7, something close.
With perfect fifth, if you stack perfect fifths, you go up and up and up and up, and yeah, eventually you'll get there. Or do the circle of fifths, you'll get through all the 12 pitches.
Or tritones.
Tritone, exactly. Also thirds, right? So minor thirds and major thirds. So if we stack major thirds, let's do major thirds above this. So C up to E, it's a major third. Up to G sharp, that's a major third. And then what's a major third above G sharp?
B sharp.
No.
Are they, yeah, B sharp. That's just C, right? That's just C. It's B sharp, C is the same thing, right? It's the same thing. Yeah, yeah. So an interval of a major third, which is what this is a ratio of 5 to 4. So that means that this is oscillating 5 times for every period that this is oscillating 4 times. It's literally a polyrhythm. So it's 5 against 4. Dun, da, 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 dun, da, dun, dun, da, dun, da, da, dun, da, dun. That's 5 against 4. So 5 to 4, 5 to 4, 5 to 4. So let me show you what that sounds like. So we have C. That's in tune, right? It's a nice, rich major third. When you practice double stops on a string instrument, you really get them in tune and your instrument really resonates. Sounds like this. Okay, now up another major third. Oh, so satisfying, right? Okay, we made it. Here's C. It's not C, it's B sharp. In diatonic land, B sharp and C are not the same note. F sharp and G flat, not the same note. E flat, D sharp, not the same note. It's not until we get to chromatic music that we start to take those intervals and stretch them a little bit to make that work. So this is what I mean when primes don't fit together. So an octave, remember, is a ratio of 2 to 1. 2 is a prime, 5 is a prime. You cannot divide primes by other primes. It doesn't work. They don't add up. You get crazy irrational numbers. And that is what you're hearing is a crazy irrational number, this interval. Just soak that in. Okay, that's a first orchestra rehearsal. All right, so that's that. So out of this comes the handout that I gave all of you. So what you have there is what we'll be working on for the next not as many classes as I would like, but as many classes as I can manage. This is what's known as species counterpoint. So species counterpoint is developed by a dude named Johann Fuchs. And he writes a book called Gradus ad Parnassum. Anyone know Debussy's Children's Corner? Yes? The first movement of that piece is called Gradus ad Parnassum, and it goes like this. Right? You've sort of heard this. Every composer in the classical tradition, from, I'd say, the middle of the 18th century through the beginning of the 20th century, studied species counterpoint. So that would mean Mozart. There are sketches where Mozart is doing species counterpoint exercises. Haydn, Beethoven studied it with Salieri. Brahms especially loved counterpoint. Everybody did this. And essentially what species counterpoint is all about is teaching you how to build the foundation for the house we call a piece of music. Now, the most interesting part of a house is not the foundation, obviously. It's not even the house, it's the people who are living in the house. So you could think of the score that you get when you are given your nice, fancy Henley Urtext. That's the people that have been written on top of the house, which has a foundation. And the foundation are these rules. And these rules are grappling with those problems, which composers and theorists in the 16th and 17th century are all very much aware of. So essentially what this sets up are the priorities of the Western classical tradition. What do we call a consonance? What do we call a dissonance? What is an acceptable leap? What is an acceptable interval to happen vertically? When can we move into that interval? When can we exit that interval? All of these rules that constitute the sound of the music that you all know come from this tradition. So let's go through this and I'll kind of just explain the broad strokes of what all of this means. So how do we define a consonance or a dissonance? Any?
Sounds nice.
Sounds nice? Or sound, which means something else sounds crunchy. Complicated, busy, noisy, obnoxious. The octave that I played you, the octave, you'd call that a dissonance, right? So what's the cutoff? Where do we decide, well, these things are consonances and these things are dissonances? Yeah, there is a kind of arbitrary cultural divide. Because if you listen to, for example, Indian Hindustani music, there are all kinds of funky intervals in that, but they're considered consonances. So we just decide, essentially, that this, for example, this polyrhythm, 5 against 4, consonants. But forget what would that be? 7 to 5. That would be this. Anyone want to clap this polyrhythm out for me? 7 against 5? No? No one? Dissonance. So essentially, as these polyrhythms get more and more complicated, eventually we decide, okay, too complicated. That's a dissonance. That's noisy, that's busy. Dissonances are therefore privileged. They're treated carefully. You approach them in a specific way, you exit them in a specific way. And it's because of all of this stuff, and I don't want to burden you with too much math. But essentially, we have this division. So consonances include unison, right? 1 to 1. A perfect fifth, that'd be a ratio of 3 to 2. You can clap 3 against 2, right? Dun, da, da, dun, dun, da, da, dun, dun, da, da, dun. That's good enough. Octaves, 2 to 1. Dun, 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 dun. Easy. Child can do that. Imperfect consonances. These are the consonances that are getting a little more complicated. 5 to 4, 6 to 5. You don't have to remember these ratios, I promise. I'm just showing you where they come from. So that would be major and minor thirds, or major or minor sixths. These are considered consonances, but we treat them slightly differently from the perfect consonances, the more pure consonances, the intervals from lower in the overtone series. Okay, so those are all of our consonances. Unisons, fifths, thirds, sixths. You will notice I did not include fourths. Come back to that. So dissonances. So this is any major second, minor second, major seventh, minor seventh, diminished or augmented intervals. Right? These are all dissonances. They will have special rules about when you can and cannot use them. For the purposes of today's assignment for next week, no dissonances whatsoever. So that brings us to the perfect fourth. This is essentially a cutoff interval. This is an interval that we treat as both a consonance and a dissonance depending on the situation. For your purposes for next week, it is a dissonance. But if maybe next week we'll play with 3-part species counterpoint, you'll just be doing 2-part for next week, then it's possible it can be a consonance. So that's the dividing line, essentially, is the perfect fourth. So the reason the perfect fourth was considered a dissonance in the 17th century is, maybe I'll just write it up here. The perfect fourth is thought of as a major third in distress. So we have a major third here, and then I'll use a different color. We stretch that major third out, but it actually wants to be a major third. It wants to collapse back down into a major third. In the 17th century, it is thought of as a major third in distress. So it is, and if you think about it, it is closer, the perfect fourth is closer to a major third than it is to a perfect fifth. But you'll be thinking, perfect fourth is an inversion of a fifth. This is cultural stuff. This is just how it's thought of, because this is all vocal music, essentially. These are techniques from a vocal tradition. Okay? So all of that was vertical. When we have intervals that sound together, simultaneities. Now let's talk about melodies. You'll notice I have this list here of permissible melodic intervals. A major second and a minor second, those are totally fine horizontally as a melody. You can write those. We don't consider that a dissonance in that case. Steps, which these are, steps of a major or minor second, these are actually considered to be the ideal interval. Why? I guess?
Well, it's when you're singing, stepwise motion is a lot simpler than a bigger jump.
Exactly. You can always just step to a neighbor note or a passing note. It's much easier than leaping somewhere. So, yep.
Question.
Yep.
What's between perfect 4 and perfect 5? Okay, if we talk on C major, there's a fifth, right? I mean,
Yeah, so in this case, we are not going to have any accidentals. So yes, there's an F sharp,
yes.
but for your purposes, we won't have that for now.
But what do you call it in English?
If it was C to F sharp, that would be an augmented fourth. Or if it was C to G flat, that'd be a diminished fifth. But we don't. This is purely diatonic music, so we won't be dealing with chromaticism at the moment. Okay? Steps are fine. Major thirds, minor thirds, also fine. Perfect fourths, perfect fifths, major sixths, minor sixths, and the biggest possible leap that you can have in this music is an octave. We'll talk about leaps. Leaps have special rules with them. But Honora, do you want to leap more than an octave usually? When you're singing, you want to, someone writes a D and then they write a C sharp above the staff. You're like, God, I hate you. Please don't do this. And an octave, you at least, okay, it's the same pitch. I can find that, right? But you go much above that and you start wandering into, we want to make this as simple and streamlined as possible. And these are what these rules are all about. Okay, so the one thing to just keep in mind is that the perfect fourth here, that was dissonant vertically. It was dissonant vertically, horizontally, totally fine. Major and minor seconds, they were dissonant vertically, but they're fine horizontally. Okay? So this brings us to the impermissible intervals. Sevenths. Any major or minor seventh, you wouldn't want to be writing a C and then a B in succession. That's considered illegal. Don't do that to a Nora. Or a D to a C. That's a minor seventh. Or an F to a B natural. What interval is that? Yes, exactly. 4 steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, but it's slightly larger than a perfect fourth. So it's an augmented fourth. So this is also impermissible. Or if we had a F to B, that'd be an interval of a diminished fifth. Can't do that. Okay? So all of these intervals are banned horizontally. When you're writing melodies, you can't use those intervals. Okay? This brings us to counterpoint, actual counterpoint. What is counterpoint?
Two voices doing different things.
Yeah, different things that we care about the relationship between them, but we also care about their differences, or really how they're moving in relationship to each other. It's like two ice skaters, you know. Sometimes they come together, sometimes they move away, sometimes they move in parallel, sometimes they move in opposite directions. So we have 4 different kinds of motion. Contrary motion, so moving in opposite directions. So if I had, I need to clean this up a little bit, get rid of the math. So if I had an F and an A, that A moves up to a B, where can the bottom voice move? It could move to E, it could move to D. Can it move anywhere else? I'm already testing you on the rules. Thinking about intervals. So, can we go to a B? Nope, that's a diminished fifth. Can't do that. Can we go, oops. Can we go to a C? No, that's a dissonance here. Can we go to an A? No, that's a dissonance. Can we go to a G?
You could do that.
Minor seventh.
Oh, yes.
A leap of a minor seventh. So already you can see that this is an algorithm. This is a kind of a musical algorithm. There are little rules. You have these constraints built in. We started on these notes. We wanted contrary motion. Where can we go? This is the only place we can go, these two notes. So this music, these rules are all about setting up constraints, and you have to puzzle through those constraints. It's like a Sudoku puzzle, like a very nerdy 17th century Sudoku puzzle for music. All right, so that's contrary motion. So the next would be similar motion. So this would be two intervals that are moving in the same direction, but not by the same amount. So let's say I have, I'll start on a C here. So this interval is moving up by a whole step, right? So if we want this voice to move up in the same direction, but not by the same amount, what are our options? E is an option. Now, I'll talk about this in a sec. This is actually not an option, but for the time being, this is an option. So major third, and what else?
G.
G. Anything else? If we go to D, they've moved by the same amount, right? So that's similar motion. And I'll tell you, or parallel motion. Sorry, that's parallel motion. We'll get to that next. You'll notice here, if I have this is a minor second and a major second. We would still consider this parallel. They're both seconds. They're a step. So we kind of think in classes, right? The class of a step, the class of a third, the class of a fourth, okay? So that's parallel. Oops. All right, can we go to F?
No.
What interval is that?
So
Augmented fourth. The leap is okay, right? The horizontal motion is okay, but the vertical interval is not allowed. We can't go to an A, because that would make a major second. That's a dissonance. Can we go to a B?
No, it's a 7.
I'll talk about unisons in a moment, but it's a leap of a seventh. Okay, so again, two options, and that's it. Okay, you're whittling down your choices. So parallel motion, I showed you that. Same distance, same direction. Now there's specific rules about parallel motion. When you have, oh yeah, and I should talk about this with the other things too. Here's a perfect fifth. Here's another perfect fifth. It's parallel motion. This is not allowed. This is what's known as parallel. So 2 lines for parallel, perfect fifth. Why? Why is this not allowed?
Just weak, is what I've always been told. It just doesn't sound nice, it's weak, and it doesn't really do much to the music, so it's kind of pointless.
I will say, anyone know what the definition of a power chord is? Parallel motion, all the parallel motion at once. That was parallel fifths, parallel octaves. You're right in the sense that it's weak in a particular sort of way. It's actually quite strong and satisfying, right? People always tell me in theory class, like, well, I like parallel fifths, they sound awesome. And I always say, I do too. That's why we ban them. Or that's why we protect them. I think that's a better way to put it. It's not that they're bad, they have a very particular attribute to it. Any guess what that might be?
Is it more in the bass sound? It sounds louder on the low end.
Yeah, you're very close. It's the low end of something. What is it the low end of?
Series.
Yes.
You're just overloading the lower end of the harmonic series.
Exactly. So remember the harmonic series. I love physics. I'm terrible at it, but I love it. just as an idea. So here's 1 to 1, 2 to 1, 3 to 1, 4 to 1. That's the frequency ratio, but they actually get weaker as we go up. So this is full power, this is half power, this is 1/3 power, 1/4 power, meaning they get softer as they go up. So the strongest intervals are down here at the bottom. The fifth, the octave. What happens is an effect called fusion. And essentially what that means is if you have two voices singing in perfect parallel fifths together, perfectly in tune, you can't tell them apart. Now, the perfectly in tune part is the hard part, obviously, but if you put a capo stop on a violin and you just use that to slide perfect fifths up and down, you'd hear it as one voice. This is less the case as you go to the higher overtones, thirds, sixths. They preserve their independence. They sound like separate voices. Parallel fifths, parallel octaves fuse together. The point of these exercises is to create voices that are separate, that are behaving independently. So we never want a moment where they fuse together. Now, I'll tell you a dark secret. Bach writes parallel fifths in his chorales all the time. But if you look at the text in the chorales, it'll be like the word God or something. There'll be like a word that is about, or the Trinity, or something is evoked that voices fusing together would more clearly express. So the reason we ban these things is so that when you see them, when you write them, they're even more meaningful and powerful. It's not because we hate fifths and octaves, it's because they have this effect of blending together so strongly. Okay? So I didn't mention this with similar motion, so that's parallel motion there, right? Notice we had this similar motion into a perfect fifth. This is also considered a fault in this music. Any guess why? It's not exactly the same reason as this, because we can hear that they're two separate voices. We're coming from this weaker interval going to the stronger interval. But why? Any guess?
Also fifth.
But what about the fifth? I actually just said it. Weaker, stronger. It's an accent. It's an acoustic accent. You're going from a weaker interval to a stronger, more resonant interval. So if you sang both of these intervals exactly equally, exactly perfectly in tune, this one will sound louder. These exercises are intended to be boring. They're like flat, homogeneous, even. You don't want things sticking out. So that in real life, composers can decide to make things stick out and they know how. It's not accidentally sticking out. Yeah.
So could you not use perfect fifths vertically and only horizontally? Or are there times where you can't?
So let's... What kind of motion is this?
Contrary.
Moving in opposite directions. So here's an octave. This is actually a stronger interval than this, right? But the contrary motion negates the effect of the arrival. So you can move in contrary motion into a fifth. Here would be another one. There's a tenth or a third. Moving into a fifth, this is fine. So, and I promise you, you will all write tons of similar and parallel fifths and octaves. It's just part of the experience. Don't feel traumatized. It's just everyone from Mozart to all of you in this room has written parallel, similar fifths and octaves, and they've had a teacher tell them no. But the only time you can't have motion into a fifth or an octave is similar motion or parallel motion. Okay, so we'll get to this when we get into the exercises. Was there another question? Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I was just wondering if that applies to an eighth as well.
Yes, exactly. I'm focusing on fifths, but octaves and fifths have the same property that you don't want to move into. Let me write another example here. You don't want to. So here's a parallel octave. These voices are fused. Their independence is now gone. They have no independence. Here's an octave. Here's an octave. Same if I did. Okay. This is a sixth. This is an octave. We now have a big honking accent on this second note here. Okay? There are exceptions to this later on, but for now, just remember, if you see an octave or a fifth in your exercise, look at what came before, and if the voices are moving in the same direction into that octave or fifth, you'll have a problem. Make sense? We're not done with this concept, I promise. We'll come back. All right, so, and then the last type of motion is what's known as oblique motion. So that's when we have, say, perfect fifth, and then we move into a sixth. For example, this voice stays the same, this voice moves. It could be out, it could be in, doesn't matter. It could be a sixth to a fifth. If we moved, can you all see the board over here? It's just rough. Okay. I'm hoping things will be better for us soon. From a sixth into a fifth, that's fine. This is fine. This is not like similar motion. Okay? So oblique motion into a strong interval is not a problem. All right? Yeah, maybe I'll just write things up here. I like the analog of chalk, but... okay, so in all of these exercises, I'll come back to this. We begin on a tonic, for example, a C. We will end on the tonic. That's essentially the foundation of your house, right? That's like if you have the foundation of a house is a rectangle. Here it is into the ground. That's like one wall to the opposite wall. They're parallel with each other. They sort of enclose the space. We begin and end in the same place. Generally. And what's funny about this stuff is when I have read the original text of Gradus ad Parnassum and looked at Johann Fuchs's own exercises from whenever it is, 1701 or something, he makes mistakes. And I didn't show it to you because there's just not time, but the way the book is written is as a conversation between a teacher and a student. It's actually kind of funny to read out loud, and the student is kind of dumb. The student's asking in a useful way, right? It's this sort of, the student will ask the teacher questions, and the teacher will say, aha, well, you thought that was the case, but in fact, it is not possible. Or, oh, but teacher, I see that you have, similar motion into an octave. I thought you said this was not permissible. And teacher says, well, student, you see, sometimes you have to break the rules in order to achieve blah, blah, blah. So you look at these exercises and you think, I lost points, but the teacher is doing the thing. That is an integral part of these rules, is that occasionally you decide to break them. And it can be a little frustrating when you're learning it, because I will be a real jerk about the rules, but you will see that exceptions are the rule in a way. So when I say, this is the rule, and then I add ... except sometimes blah, 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 you'll just remember every single rule has something like that tacked on. Okay, so we talked about this, generally stepwise motion, easier to sing. We'll sing these today. And you add leaps for a little extra flavor. Think of leaps, anything really a third and above. Think of leaps as, it's like when you get a hamburger and it has like potato chips in it or something. It's like it's just there to, I don't know, fries. So I've had a burger like that. It's like very slim cut fries. It's just for texture. So think of leaps as color in this music. Mostly stepwise, but when you have a leap, it's special. And this makes sense when you sing higher and higher and higher. The musical tension increases, the sound gets louder, the energy rises. We think of that in these exercises. As you go up, you're creating tension, which means you must come back down. So motion upwards, tension, motion downwards, relaxation. Because leaps are treated like a color, a special event, whenever you have a leap, you must always relax that leap by step. Now, the rule for this is a little bit like etiquette, like door etiquette. If you're opening a door to a building and someone is right behind you, hold open the door. If you close the door in that person's face, you are 100% an asshole. Okay? That would be a leap of an octave. Leap of an octave, if we have, I'll write all these down. You have a leap of an octave, you must, your mother will come and find you and berate you for not holding that door open. That octave must resolve down by step. Okay? Tension up, relaxation down. So, and when you leap, you must go in the opposite direction. So actually, if you leap down, you must resolve up.
What if you go up and then go down?
Well, that's what we're doing. Up.
No, down, up and down.
Doesn't
make sense.
No. It must be immediate. Yeah, I see. Like C, C, D, C. Immediately. You do an octave, gotta go back down. If you go down an octave, gotta go up. So any leap creates tension and you must go in the opposite direction. So sixth, same thing. Go up a sixth, you gotta go down by step. Go up a fifth. That person's 10 feet behind you, you're in a hurry. Your mother will forgive you this once, okay? It's not good though. Not a good look, but it's fine. You go up a fourth. I mean, you saw your mother do this, and you're like, well, my mother did this, and she kept walking on. Up a perfect fourth. It's not good, but yeah, maybe. Go up a third. That person's like in the parking lot and you're at the door of Beto. You're almost a jerk for standing there and holding the door open, because then they're like, oh, I gotta run to be polite because they're holding the door for me, right? So this is what I mean by exceptions to the rule. We have a gradient of etiquette from your mother will haunt you to, So a leap of a third We do call it a leap of a third. There is absolutely nothing wrong with going up a step at that point. Okay? But as you go up the scale, okay? That's a sad face, just in case that wasn't clear. The larger the leap, the more essential that you resolve it by step in the opposite direction. Yep?
I have a question on what's allowed with range. Like, I know we're not allowed to jump more than an octave.
Yep.
But if we were to go stepwise, then end up going above, like if we start on C and we end up going above the C, but not in an illegal way, is it still legal?
We'll talk, the only aspect of range that we care about is the distance from the other voice. And generally, the maximum distance that we want is an octave and a fifth or a 12th. So we don't ever want the voices to be further apart than an octave and a fifth. And even then, like only in emergencies. This stuff becomes a little clearer once we start doing it, but we gotta go. But keep that in mind, that the distance can be a 10th or not an 11th. Why not? What is the interval of an 11th?
4.
8, 9, 10, 11. 1, 2, 3, 4. An 11th is a perfect fourth. It's a perfect 11th, so that's a dissonance. Okay, so yeah, we'll do some exercises. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. This gets us to actually doing this stuff. So we're going to generate a cantus firmus, which just means it's the set melody, it's the given melody. And think of this is a little bit like you are improvising on a melody that someone gave you. Now for Tuesday's assignment, I will actually ask you to invent your own cantus firmus. Generally, you're just given a cantus firmus, and you'll write counterpoint above it. And part of the challenge is that you have this melody and you have to solve it. You have to write counterpoint that works. But we'll just make a quick cantus firmus. So similarly, it's between 8 and 16 notes. We'll make one of 8 notes, make it relatively short. It's arrhythmic, which means it's all whole notes. So we'll have 8 whole notes in a row. And it will always begin and end on the same note. Always. Okay, whether it's C or D or E or whatever, it'll always begin and end on movable do. Okay? It will always approach the final note by step, generally from above. I put in less common is this, B to C. I have rarely seen a cantus firmus that ends from below. I've seen a couple in exercises that are like 4-part species counterpoint, but rarely in the 2-part stuff, or almost never. So I just put that there because it's a thing, but I would basically just not worry about it. Regardless, you always approach the final note by step. And this is the same in the cantus firmus as it is in the counterpoint. You always end it by step. Okay, so for now, we're just going to end this. Oops, that was too big an eraser. Always going to end this from above. Okay, so already we have 3 notes. Yeah?
Are you doing like chords?
No, no chords. Just
No,
Just single notes for the moment. Okay, so same rules about horizontal leaps. We can't have any dissonant leaps, diminished fifth, augmented fourth, major seventh, minor seventh, okay? It's all consonances. the range is, usually it's like a fifth or a sixth. It can go up to an octave from the highest note to the lowest note. I have never seen one that was a tenth. That's huge. That's very difficult to write counterpoint against for the very reason I told you, that you don't want the voices too far apart, and that necessarily pushes the other voice way up into the stratosphere. And another attribute of this is that you always have a high point. There's always a climax. There's always one note that is the highest note of the whole phrase. They're usually attractively shaped. I don't know really how else to put that, except that they have this nice kind of variety of leaps and steps and a sort of curvaceous, smooth. You'll see the two that I made up. They're pleasant. All of this is very pleasant and boring. Mostly stepwise. And here's an important one. No motives. So that would be like this. Do you see what I did? We have a pattern. We have a repeating pattern of a gesture. No repeating patterns, no obvious repeating patterns where you repeat the same thing but change it slightly. Again, it's more boring, but that's the idea. Large leaps, fourth or larger, followed by a step in the opposite direction, same as what I just told you. No more than 2 leaps in a row. So that would be like this. Okay, we've done 2 leaps in a row. We have to do something else. And in fact, we just leapt a perfect fourth, so what do I have to do? We could keep going, but in this case, because we've leapt twice, we need to do something else. So in this case, we'll hold the door that slightly, almost awkward amount of time. If anyone doesn't follow my humor, just be like, what did that mean? And I don't mean to confuse anybody. Okay, so actually I have inadvertently started writing counterpoint, or started writing a cantus firmus. So here's 1, 2. Leading notes in all cases. What does that mean? I think I needed to take that out. That's if we have T. We'll talk about that later. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's a nice little cantus firmus. Where's the climax? There's our highest note. You always want to identify where the highest note is, because when we get to the counterpoint, its highest note must be someplace else. Okay? We approach by step 2, 1. We dealt with all leaps as we were supposed to. Okay? Any questions about this so far? All right. So now, first species. So I'm going to write out that. Why is this so fuzzy? I'll write out our cantus firmus. And I'll just do this on one staff. Usually it's going to be 2 different staves. Okay? So I'll write see if I can remember it. Okay. So, counterpoint. We're going to write some counterpoint against this. Now, there's one thing you can always do. You can always end your counterpoint properly. If you're writing counterpoint above the cantus firmus, it will always end with scale degree 7 to scale degree 1 above the cantus firmus. So that means, how is this going to end? We're in C, of course.
So the counterpoint's going to end on a C.
It's going to end on a C. It can't be the same C. It has to be above, so it'd be an octave above. And if scale degree 7 would be B. This is always how they end. Major sixth to perfect octave. This is what's known as a clausura vera. That's essentially the way of saying cadence. This is the cadence of a species counterpoint exercise. Always ends this way. Major sixth, perfect octave, scale degree 7, scale degree 1. So with any species counterpoint exercise, you can always write the ending. You always know it's going to end that way. In terms of beginning it, when you're writing counterpoint above the cantus firmus, you have two options, basically. Three, kind of, but I'll tell you why the third one doesn't work. So the most common is write the octave above. Start on the same note as you end on. Generally works. Above the cantus firmus, you can also start at the perfect fifth. Now, there are some cases where you could write a unison. You could begin on a unison. You can't in this case because of one particular thing that's happened here. Tell me about the relationship of these voices. So we're going to have the cantus firmus moving up here. The counterpoint can never go below the cantus firmus. So
Well, it has to go low. The second.
the next note in the cantus firmus is higher than the previous note in the counterpoint. This is what's known as a voice overlap. So if the cantus firmus is going up, you can't begin on a unison because necessarily it's like the cantus firmus is going to have to step over the counterpoint to get to its next note. It's a little bit like trying to go to the bathroom right now, right? So if, for example, the cantus firmus went down, let's say it did this. It went down to a B. Then we could start on a unison. And the counterpoint could, do its own thing, go up to another note, could go up to a D, something like that. But you can only begin the counterpoint on a unison with the cantus firmus if the cantus firmus is going down in the next note. So I would just say, unless you are absolutely certain of this, always start your counterpoint on the fifth or the octave. Unisons are possible, but it's kind of rare. The cantus firmus usually starts on a note and goes up and comes back down to that note. It's rare that they start, go down, and then come back up. They do exist, but there are fewer of those cantus firmus. You could write one like this. If you want to write your own cantus firmus for the third exercise I'm going to give you, you could have it go down. That's fine. But generally, they're going to be at pitch or above. Okay, so fifth or octave, that's usually your best bet. Okay, I've basically told you all of this already. all of these rules. A lot of this stuff is essentially repeated from the rules I told you earlier, which you were all doing very well at when I gave you options. So all consonances. You cannot have any vertical dissonances. Everything is a consonance, vertically. Okay? Mostly stepwise. Make the singers happy. You know, stepwise motion makes, for all of us, we're all singers in this class. Avoid outline, let's just do it. It's more fun than me talking about rules. Always makes more sense. So we can start this on fifth or octave. Pick one, fifth or octave. You guys like your fifths? Okay, awesome. Okay, where can we go from here? So with these exercises, it's always helpful to write out all the possibilities, like I was doing on the board earlier. We could, can we go down to an E? Why?
Because the next note, then the discernment would have to step over.
Exactly. You're going to create, so here's the Sudoku part of it. You have to think not just of the next step, but the step after. Or maybe that's not Sudoku. But in any case, this is a puzzle where the consequences of your actions matter. Or chess, maybe. Yep.
So it doesn't matter if the top one, like, see how we're starting on the G and then
Yep.
the disturbance goes to A? That doesn't matter?
No, because that's far enough away.
Okay.
It's only immediate bar to bar.
Okay.
Yeah, great question. I will say part of the point of these exercises is long-term planning, as I just said, and that's something. It's really good that you have noticed this, but it's not against the rules. So we can't go to an E. There's another reason we can't go to an E. Unisons are not allowed here. They're not allowed in the body of the counterpoint. It's just a rule. I have seen them in Fuchs's exercises, but I will mark them as false. Okay, so we can't go to E. Can we go to G? Yeah?
Stationary.
Look at the next note in the cantus firmus. Ah.
C.
Up to D.
What interval is A? Vertically.
That's a perfect fourth.
Yeah.
Dissonance.
Icky.
Perfect fourth is a dissonance.
Up to D. C.
Can we go to a B? Similar fifth. Oh, parallel fifths, exactly. I'm sorry, I was thinking of another interval. Yeah, parallel fifths. There's our first parallel fifth. Baby's first parallel fifth. I have, I'll show you guys a video of my daughter playing the piano with me. She has her own little things that she likes to do. I haven't taught her about parallel fifths yet. I want to save her trauma for a little later. Okay, so we can't do B.
Up to D.
What interval is a D?
That's a
That's a 7.
Seventh. Dissonance, not allowed. C, okay. Will that work? Thank God. Okay, we have a possible solution. Are there any other possibilities?
E.
Okay, if we go up to an E,
That's knocked out.
that's why I can't.
an octave.
That's a, what do we call this?
Similar.
Similar motion into an octave. I would write sim 8. Similar motion into an octave. And what's the deal with that?
Can't do that
Yeah, why?
because it's like a powered chord.
It's an accent. It's a melodic accent. It's going to stick out. And this is the most like wonder-bred, whitewashed, just picket fence, boring counterpoint possible.
But what if you put bad fifth or octave on your highest note to stick out? because it's your highest climax, right?
You're now talking about music.
Alright.
No, but this is what these exercises are for, is you learn to control your counterpoint so that when you write the word, when you're setting the word Liebe, love, then you put in your similar octave highest note. It sticks out and it really means something because you've controlled the rest of the texture. You've made it boring, so this one place is interesting. That's really what these exercises are about. Not about making you boring. It's really about, ideally, making you interesting. Okay, so really kind of, can we go up to a G?
No, that's a 7.
From G to G?
No, it,
Oh,
we could, but it's like a big jump.
Somewhere over the rain. Right. We can do it, but what do you have to absolutely do at that point?
Step down. Yeah.
You must hold that door open or your mother will come to your dorm room in the middle of the night and berate you. Does that work?
Yes.
Isn't it nice when things work? So that's the furthest we can go, right? We can't sing a leap bigger than an octave. That's our cap in terms of melodic writing. And that makes an interval of a tenth. That is within the range that is acceptable between voices. So remember, we got to write our intervals underneath. This is important. Just it's partly for you keeping tabs on what you're doing, but also for me to see that you understand what intervals are, which is always a thing that happens. Okay, so both of these would work. The C would work, the G would work. The consequences of both are solvable. Okay? Now, if we go from G to C, that's a leap of how much? A fourth. What do we do when we leap a fourth? Now, yeah. I mean, you could. You really like the person. They're like walking up the side, like, hello, how are you? Hold the door open. But you could also not.
Would you mark it wrong?
It depends what you do next. For me, perfect fourth is the cutoff. If, all other things working out, if you have one place where you schmutz it a little bit to make it work, I'll understand. It's fine. I've suffered through this stuff too. So we could, so where could we go next if we go to the C? You could stay there. You are allowed to repeat a note once. Because we cannot have counterpoint where it's just like this all the way through, right? That's no. You didn't do the assignment. That's just cheating. Okay? I mean, it's probably also wrong, but you can do it once. I actually think our leap of an octave is kind of fun, and it works, so why not? Let's stick with it. Let's see if we can make it work. Is everyone cool with that choice? I always like doing group decisions because it always leads to interesting outcomes. All right, so next one is what interval? 6? Okay. So what next? We could do that. That'd be a sixth. Anything else we could do? Can we go down to a D?
No.
If we go down to a D, that's a similar fifth.
Yeah.
That's an accent. Okay, so no D. C, what interval is C to B? Or C to G?
Perfect fourth.
Can't do that. Dissonance. Okay, can we go down to a B? What interval is this?
Oh, fifth.
Diminished fifth. It's slightly smaller than a fifth. Can't do that. Okay? Can't go down to an A. That's a dissonance. So we can go to an E. Can we go up? What interval is F? G to F?
Seventh.
Can't do seventh. Can we go up to G?
That's an
Octave is fine,
Oh.
but contrary motion
Right.
into an octave, that's fine. No problem.
Could do that.
Now, we're going to need so our climax in the cantus firmus is here, right? We're going to need one climax in the counterpoint as well, and it cannot be in the same place. So we've already had our over the rainbow climax on the second beat. It has to be in the body of the counterpoint. The highest note cannot be at the beginning or the end. It has to be somewhere in the middle. So keep in mind that we have this high note, and it can be the only high note. That's the only high note we can have. Or we have to go higher. But remember, we're going to have to get down here at some point. And the higher you go, the higher the stakes are. It becomes more difficult to get down. If we're up at, say, let's say we go to a B. This is like stretching it. What interval is this? Fifth or 12th, technically. 12th is the max. That is the ceiling, but the distance you can have between the two voices, maximum distance. Okay.
Up to the A, down to the A, strings itself to the B, up to the C.
Say that one more time, sorry.
From the F, you go to the E, up to the A, down to the A, then you step back up to the B, then resolves to the C. That work?
Were you going from the beginning?
No, from the last F we had as like solid, whatever.
Oh, yes. Well, let's think from here to the end. How do we get down an octave to that B at the end there?
You could just jump down an octave.
That'd be 3 consecutive jumps.
Well, if you jump down the octave, what does your mother require you to do?
Step back up.
You got to step back up, but if we leap down an octave here, first of all, that's an augmented fourth, so that's no good. But that also means this next bar, we need to go up to C.
Right.
Can't do that. Your actions have consequences. That's the point of these exercises. You have to think ahead. So B is maybe not a good idea, which means we should let G be our highest note. We can only have it once. We should have everything else be below that. It's kind of nice when decisions are made for you by the algorithm, he says to the group of students who all use AI. Sorry, I'm kidding. Okay, so where do we go?
Maybe keep it.
Yeah, we could do that. We haven't repeated anything so far. Is there anything else we could do?
You could go down to the G.
Yeah, maybe,
Interesting about the G. So if we go down to the G,
maybe the same.
what do we have to do?
Go up.
We got to go up.
We could go above.
We can do that.
Yeah.
We can do that. That's fine. And you'll notice that this note is at the same level as the previous cantus firmus note. So keep that voice overlap issue in mind. It goes both directions. So if the counterpoint went below the previous note, that's a fault, as much as it going below the next. Does that make sense? So the voice overlap is bidirectional, forward and backwards. But same level, that's fine, no problem. And we've done this leap, down a sixth, got to go in the opposite direction. We just solved it. Yay. Okay, so let's look at some other options just so you can see how this can play out. So E, Yeah, we can actually do the same solution with E, jump down a fifth, opposite direction. This is looking good. Now I'm going to just write something here. So here's a C, F, E, C. How many intervals of a sixth have I had in a row? 6, 6, 6. You can only have 3 of the same interval in a row. Otherwise, you just write counterpoint where it's just sixths all the way through, right? Or thirds, easy, I'm done. You can only have 3 of the same interval in a row, then you have to do something else. Okay? But I think the solution with the E was nice. Or sorry, with the G, just because, you know, leaps are like protected, but that's because they're fun. Okay, so let's sing this. Low voices. Raise your hand. Raise your hand. I need more than a quarter of you. Ideally, half of you. How about we do from the middle of that center table to the wall is the cantus firmus. Okay? I don't care what octave you sing in. It doesn't matter. Sing low octave, high octave, doesn't matter. And then from here, the piano, sing the counterpoint. Okay? So I'll just play it for you. And I got to the piano. How about that? Okay, so here's our counterpoint. Lovely. All right, you ready? It's actually quite, it has a nice shape to it, I have to say. All right, you ready? So just that tempo. All ready? I'll count 3, 4, and then we start. 3, 4. All right, and now without the piano. Oh, sorry. Okay, ready? 3, 4. Great. There you go.
Kind of sounds like, well, at least like the first 4 measures. Sounds like when you wish upon a star.
Yeah, yes. No, the leap of an octave is a very distinctive sound. And that, yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Almost made that, recreate that song.
So, species counterpoint, you just did something that every great composer has done back to the 17th century or 18th century. So let's just quickly talk about species counterpoint in a minor key. This was or a minor mode. This is in a major mode. There is one difference, and actually I will just change the key signature and make this easy. Now, I said the end of this needs to end with major sixth, perfect octave. Since I just changed the key signature, what are those intervals now? Which means we have to do something.
Raise the 7.
Exactly. And this is what we call a leading tone. That is where it comes from. Now this just created a problem. Anyone see the problem?
Yeah, it's a tritone. No, that's how it is. That's right, I was looking at the wrong one.
I'll just play it. What's that interval from A flat to B natural?
It's
Dissonant AF. Okay? So we can't have this. Now, at this point, we try to find another way to get to the end, to the clausula vera. This is still called a clausula vera. I think I wrote that in here, right? Yeah, here we go. Clausula vera. Or there's a cheat code. It's my favorite cheat code. I love cheat codes. How about that? Solved our problems. This is what's known as musica ficta, false notes, wrong notes. But we have changed something about the mode to fix a problem. We had a problem, we changed the note to fix the problem. Again, this is one of those things where you're like, well, I can't find a reasonable way out of this problem, so I'm just going to change that F to an F sharp, or that A flat to an A natural. Now, it absolutely has to be your last resort. But in this case, what minor scale is this at the end? Melodic minor, exactly. So I'll just play this. It's so simple, yet I love teaching this stuff because it's like the building blocks of music, and you feel how other music could build on top of this. Okay, so that's species counterpoint. Now, for the assignment, you will notice that, let me pass that around actually, and the bright space is up, by the way, so you should all be able to upload your notes and see the PDF of the assignment, but I have paper here because I like paper. So I think I'm just winging it here with number of copies, but nope, not enough. 2, 3, 4, 4 back there. Oh, so sorry. So, yeah, there you go. Is there, oh, there were only 2?
Yeah.
Oh, weird. Okay. I literally thought I felt 4. And then 4. Does everybody have one? Did I miss anyone? Did you both get one? Yes, everybody has one? No? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. It's all right. You will notice there is lower counterpoint also. We'll look at this on Tuesday. I want you to do it. Do it. But lower counterpoint is all the same rules, except you cannot start on a perfect fifth. Why?
Because it's a perfect fifth below.
Yeah, what would that, if it's a perfect fifth below,
Fourth.
what key are we in? If it's a perfect fifth below, the key is determined by the lowest note. So perfect fifth below C is F. So now it sounds like we're in F. So you can only start on the unison or the octave. You can't start a perfect fifth below, and a fourth is dissonant. And when you approach the ending, it is the inversion of upper counterpoint. So if upper counterpoint is major sixth to octave, what's the inversion of a major sixth? Minor third. Okay? So you know you can end it that way. It's always going to end 7-1, T, Do. just like upper counterpoint is always T do. Major 6th octave. Sorry, the counterpoint.
Okay.
That I'm not talking about. So these are cantus firmae that I wrote. You will write your own for the last one here. Okay? And then we'll basically look at these on Tuesday and go over it. Yes?
So do you want us thinking in terms of chords? They're all related to each other?
No, yeah, so don't worry about the relationship of the top counterpoint to the bottom counterpoint. This is just cantus firmus up or cantus firmus down. Okay? So it's not 3-part, it's 2-part. 2-part counterpoint, but 2 different ways. If you have questions, my office hours are now and tonight. I have a concert with Stephanie Blythe at 7:30, I think. I hope. All right, see you later.